Doesn't even matter.
Here we go again. We ready?
Here I go again on my own.
We are ready.
You done?
Going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone.
There's a reason we do a podcast where we talk, because we definitely can't sing, or they can't sing. So welcome back, guys, to the Raised Hunting Podcast, and we are glad you're here. I'm your host, David Holder. I'm joined today by my two special guests. Warren and Easton Holder are here, and so are Dan and Christo. Our two dogs are laying beside us. All of us are trying to move as minimal as possible because it is excruciatingly hot in Iowa right now. However, we're coming off of a really cool podcast last week where we had a special guest, and then we got another really cool guest coming up next week, so definitely tune into that one. But today we are going to the topic is answer some questions. We got lots of people asking questions, and so instead of trying to just pick one, we think we got a handful of them that we can try to answer that are kind of all culminated together. So
This would be great for our What Would You Do segment that we haven't done very well on.
We've done it every time.
we did it every time so far.
Well, are you sure?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So, but you got some shout outs to do?
I do.
All
We're
right.
going to do Apple people first because apparently Colton Messner is the only one listening to our requests for reviews. So thank you, Colton. Unless everybody's abandoned Apple Podcasts, we know there's some of you listening that aren't leaving reviews. Do we have any listeners left on Apple, Nick, according to the analytics? Why are we paying this guy? Anyway,
He only looks at oranges. He doesn't know what the apples are doing.
Oh, God. So, anyways, Colton says, love the show. Getting my raised knocks in the mail today, and I'm ordering scents for this coming season here soon. Can't wait to try them out. You know what? That reminds me. We also sell stuff at Raised Hunting, and you guys actually asked us. Actually, East and I went to a business workshop and met a guy there that listens to the podcast, and he's like, what are you guys doing here? And we're like, oh, well, we sell stuff. And he's like what? And we're like, well, we got scents and lighted knocks and stuff. And he's like, you dipshits, don't you think you should tell us that when we're listening to the podcast? And we're like,
That would
we
be a good
probably
idea.
should. So we've decided we're going to start informing you guys. So with that being said, we do sell scents for deer. We sell knocks for arrows. We sell products for
Canine.
dogs. And you can get them all on
RaisedHunting.com.
RaisedHunting.com.
www.raisedhunting.com. www.raisedhunting.com.
which
You
you
can do
guys
it without yawning.
I did it the other two times.
Yeah.
which you guys have been absolutely awesome. Like, I think that of all of the platforms, podcast listeners actually definitely go and support us and buy knocks and buy scents and buy stuff. So
Yeah.
we appreciate you guys. You guys
Because
are the best.
Just so you guys know, we fill all that stuff ourselves. Any one of us could be the one filling. Well, any one of the two of us, meaning Easton or me, are probably putting stuff in a
No
box
love.
for you. So you never
Warren's
know when.
significant other now.
Yeah, we've got a few of us, but
Doing
it's
my
actually
part.
us filling the boxes. So if we recognize your name, you may see a kind of a weird note or something like that. Sometimes we do that to people. We put extra sticker in there or something like that just to tell you, hey man, good to hear from you.
You're a
we'll make sure to lick the envelope for you too.
It's gross.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy Rupsick, appreciate you as usual, buddy. And yes, Donkaholics. Adam Dadbadowd, he gets me every time with that name. Brian Sheffield, he should be giving Easton lots of crap for the shoulder shrug. Jake
he
Rotman,
texted me.
7803. Byron Brown, 3319. Timmy Tuff, 5344. Eric S007, that's my favorite username. Christopher Franklin, 1842. Mailman 000, appreciate you. Chad Lundmark 2841, Justin Keith 1090, William Ayers SP4TT, Tyler Akers DX8WC, Tyler
Hey,
Cagle
he is
1486,
He's the extra G.
BNB Custom Game Calls, Eric Obarts 1209, Butchbeard 6311, Jared Warnick 7623, Colton Gibson 7519, Bucky Doe Downer 9040, The Chase 810, William Ayers SP4TT, and Mr. Master 98 892. YouTube is starting to roll.
Yeah, we might
not be able to do that anymore.
You can take up a whole time just reading everyone's handles.
So
Tyler Akers is the one that sent us the freaking super cool email about enjoying the podcast and everything and how it's helped and stuff.
And
So you're an
Spotify
extra
people,
G.
much
Appreciate
love
you.
to you guys because we can't see your names, but you guys keep just freaking rolling. So Spotify guys, you are almost there. You almost have us at 300 reviews. We're so close. Please help us out. We're almost there. Okay, now we can talk about the subject stuff.
Oh,
whatever-
Lord.
whatever-
We have a visitor,
Who?
Shane,
He's
sitting
Yeah,
outside the door.
15 minutes
watching.
early. We should just bring him in.
Bring him
Shane,
We got an extra headset.
you need to bring your own chair, though. You go get him, Nick.
He's getting.
Don't
All right,
don't
so-
give him an option. Tell him he's just got to come.
He's got his own chair and he's
All right, we got our guest.
You can't sit with your back to the camera.
That's my best side.
Yeah, you're blocking everybody.
That's funny.
Okay.
You got to pass headsets around. So I was wrong. We do have a special guest today.
That was unexpected. I don't know what the hell you're doing here, but here you go.
This is Easton's real dad. And I say that because you can see that they dressed accordingly.
Yeah, we did. We were playing that out.
Welcome, Shane.
Thank you.
Welcome back. That was kind of unexpected, but we'll take it. And actually, we know
This is
some of
actually
the.
a really good topic for
It
him
is,
to be here
it's
on.
a super one. You walked in right in the middle. So what we're doing today is we're simply answering questions from people that wrote in, and because we've been asking guys, hey, what are some topics that you want us to cover? Well, several people wrote in, but particularly a lot of it's been on food plots, and so.
This is all I talked to him about.
So welcome, and Shane is extremely knowledgeable on food plots. He makes a mess of some of them just like I do, but he also gets them right, and when he gets them right, they're really good.
I like how he cut you off the other day when you had a question, and he's like, "What is
What
it
do you want to
about food
plant
plots
now?
today?"
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, are we ready to roll on this?
Yep.
Do you want me to read it off of my phone? Because I took a picture of the question that you sent, Easton.
We can. The basic premise of this one is going to be where we're putting food plots, why we put them there, what type of food plots, things to avoid, things to look for. Basically, and I think we're going to use one of Dad's pieces of land as an example, because this is exactly what a lot of you guys have asked for. You've got a new piece of land, you got a lease, you bought a piece of land, whatever it is, somebody's letting you put some food plots on it or something. You have a new area that has never been planted maybe, or
I got
you need
one
to
too,
learn
I
how
could
to
read that's
identify, like, hey, I'm going to put one here instead of in the trees or up on top of a hill or whatever, and why we look at some of the places we do. So
So do we want to do some general stuff first, or do you want me to take off on and read this question?
well, it sounds like you both have questions.
yeah. Actually,
Dude,
you should let me do this other one first because I think it'll actually even be better because it's kind of a follow up to when we were talking about trying to reverse engineer nocturnal deer.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know if he wants me to say his name or not, so we won't. But I thought it was really, really interesting. So if you guys listened to the podcast a few weeks ago, when was it that we were talking about reverse engineering a deer?
Yeah, it was like 2 or
Not-
3 episodes
well,
ago.
Reverse engineering. We're not making the deer, but
Yeah.
trying to find them when they're where they're
Backtracking
at
them.
night, So he sent me several photos. Well, he sent us to Race Hunting, asked questions about trying to find a deer that was
I remember.
nocturnal. And so then he sent me a screenshot of his pins.
Holy
And-
crap.
Yeah, he's doing his
Homework.
homework on logging the deer. However, the very interesting thing about this was there was only one picture I asked him about. He probably
I
sent
saw
me
it.
15 to 20 photos, and there's only one I asked him about, and that photo was at 6:52 a.m., if I remember
It's
correctly.
almost daylight.
It was right at daylight, and it was right here on where he'd circled it. And if you notice, where all the other cameras are and everything, that he gets him at night is nowhere near there.
Yep.
And so then,
That's a really easy way to portray it.
well, and that's a stand as well. So he has a stand there as well, and that's the only place the deer had ever been seen during the day. So my point with that is sometimes it's a lot more simple than we think. Where you have the one picture that's close to daylight and the one daylight sighting of him, put more time in there. As Alex Hormozy would say, do more of that. Go there and pay attention to where that deer was during the day.
I don't remember if I did the tip or the podcast where if you have Onyx, whatever you're using app-wise, for us it's Onyx, we use mark your stuff. Like
that
when you see a deer.
Tip.
Yeah, but we just talked about this recently. Like mark where you see the deer, and then in the notes and stuff, you even put in what direction they were going, temperature, weather, stuff like that could portray or give you information. And then as time goes on, whether you're seeing them from a stand or you're seeing them on camera, you'll look at your Onyx and you'll see, like what Warren was just explaining, a pattern. Okay, well, there was one time where he was here, but the rest during daytime, and then the other ones are over here. So that's a great way to visually see, and I'd be willing to bet if you start doing that, you would see that like, oh, wow, he's only been in one spot during the day. Let's go there.
Yep.
Instead of trying to figure it out.
So do you want to go over your question or mine?
Either one. You take off. You got your phone open already.
Okay. So this question came in from Noah. He says, I was on a really nice buck last year, 3.5 to 4.5 years old at the time. He popped up mid-August, and I watched him and patterned him. Almost got an arrow in him early September, and after a few weeks later, he disappeared. I'm doing some light scouting and have a camera out, but I have not seen him yet. I know exactly where he was bedding. Red circle, he sent us a picture, is his travel route to his preferred food source, soybeans, which is the blue. The whole area I'm observing is about 300-ish acres with multiple soybean fields around and good bedding in several spots. If alive, should he come back to the same area he was in last year, and how close to the same exact areas would he likely come back to? That's his question.
Let's predict the future here. We got this.
Well, I think we can go off of our own experience, and I know what I said to him. So, do you want to go?
I don't care.
I asked for more information.
The past couple of years, more than ever.
Well, so do you want to know what I asked so that you can have the full context?
Sure.
I said I like the setup a lot. I'd imagine your crops have rotated now. The bean fields are all cornfields? Question mark. And I'll show you the pictures. This is why I liked it a lot, because it's kind of an island of trees. Like, it's really only probably, I don't know, 10 acres or something like that.
The circle is the small timber, or is it to the left?
They're both two little things of timber. And this is all, that was all bean fields last year. Anyways.
And the reason Warren's not showing you guys the phone is because then we would be showing you where this guy lives and in his place, and we don't want to do that.
That if you guys send us topics and you send us pictures, we will not.
We're not going to share them. I mean, just out of courtesy.
We also won't come and shoot your deer. And so I asked him if his season opened September 1, and if he was bedding there last year, was he there frequently? Did you see him or get pics of him on a weekly basis, bi-weekly, every other day, etc.? He says, actually, last year he had corn and beans to choose from. He always went to the beans. This year, everything is beans. Season opened September 6th this year, good old Kentucky. Father-in-law saw him while bush hogging in the morning, and it was on. Didn't have a camera out at the time. After a few sits, I would see him about every time I went out, and a big hill overlooking his whole area. But like clockwork, he would be out in daylight, heading to bed, and I would watch him get up from his bed and slowly head out as it was getting to dark. This dude would always take his time before bedding, sit there for several minutes like a statue, and then bed in the thick sage. But yes, I saw him a lot and just saw him less and less as it got later in September.
So his question is, do we think he's going to be there again this year?
Is he going to come back? What are the odds of him coming back? And then what would you do, if anything, any different this year?
Well, I can answer. I'll give you my take on the coming back, and that is it's 50-50 because we've seen them where they come back. I'll use Blade as an example. Once I figured out where he was summering at, there's another deer that I refer to as the 12. 3 years in a row, he's been in the same 300-yard area. I mean, there's a couple hundred acres of ag fields there, and that switches where he might show up. Typically, you can't see them in the corn. You can see them in a bean field. So they could be in the same field, but you just can't see them. So there is a good chance that he would be in the same area, maybe not in the same field exactly. So that would be something I would definitely be looking in that area for him. Typically, we have seen that a lot of these bucks go back to wherever they like to summer. They like to summer there, but the agriculture fields will change to some degree where exactly they go.
I think he'll come back.
I
think if he's 4, then he'll definitely come back. If he's 3, I think that your chances are a little bit less because it seems like 3-year-olds
can get pushed around.
Kind of change, where they're at from 3 to 4. So I think that he'll come back. Will he go bed in the same spot? Probably not, but I think he's going to come back, and I think he's close by there somewhere. I think the only thing you could have to deal with is he could be in the corn, and then you got to find him in the corn. But I believe he will come back.
I weirdly have only had an opinion on this in the past 3 years, because I don't know how you could possibly predict a deer doing the same thing 365 days later than what he did the year previous. But I'm with you on this, and the reason I am with both of you guys on this is because I've seen it now, where I've had certain deer show up at certain points of time in the same area within, on average, it seems like out of the 3 or 4 that I've had do it consistently, it seems like it's maybe not on the spot like that week, but it's like within a week or 2 that they show up, and it tends to be in the same area every time. And then it also, to go further with it, seems like they're doing the similar things no matter what the crop rotation was in that area. And I'm also a believer that crop rotation affects how they are going to do their thing. But for whatever reason, in some of these where I've seen them the year after year, they seem to have similar patterns when they come to do it. But in his situation, I'd say that I would bet money that you're probably going to see him again, unless it's a really young deer, or maybe it's an old deer that isn't traveling that far, depending on where he's normally at. But I would say the better chance is that he does show up there, and you better kill him quick, because it sounds to me like that is part of his summer range, and that might even be just a in-between stage from where he actually summers all summer and then is going to during the fall, because if he's not there all summer, then he's obviously not there. So if he comes there during that point, he's probably traveling to something that he is, I would think, going to rut in
spend the fall in.
Yep. So the reason you're probably seeing less and less is because he's coming in, hanging out for a little bit till it's getting a little closer, then he's going to slowly get over to where he wants to go. So if you get him on camera, you better be in a freaking stand too, because you guys are lucky that you have an early season where they can be patterned still that early in the year. When ours starts, we're pretty much out of a pattern unless you get lucky on 1 or 2.
I told him I'd be trying to scout him for the first couple days before the season, and I'd be trying to kill him on opening day.
Yep. Absolutely use the years previous. It's huge. I could not believe how much I've been able to learn that your year's information previous is incredible for the fall, like your current. But
Shane might be the most qualified person on this.
I'm just glad we got a guy asking a question that will better understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
the more you say that, the more I listen to you talk, and I can see how it's confusing. Just the knowledge base isn't all that great, and the pronunciation isn't great either.
touche.
I just thought he was slow at first.
Well, you're both right.
So, for anybody that's a new
doesn't
listener,
know, they better
Shane
know.
is from Kentucky. So he is probably, and he's a big deer killer. So he's got probably more information on this. The most qualified person here to be answering this. So let's see what your thoughts are.
I mean, I agree with all of you. I mean, you got certain buck like Blade that does something crazy, but in Kentucky, it seemed like they were just as patternable as here. I think they're creatures of habit, basically. Hightower, he showed up on my farm only in 4 years, November 23rd through November 25th. That's how tight his pattern was when he'd show up on my farm. Not a day before, that was those 3 days when he'd show up. That's a fall pattern. Summer patterns, I think, are even tighter. Right now, they're moving around. Like I showed you all that video of the buck I got the other night. I went 2 nights in a row. I can't catch him. I think he's actually moving around right now, and then I have a lot of deer come to my farms in August here. But as far as going back to Kentucky, absolutely, I feel 100% he'll be there as long as he's alive. If I don't know what would change that pattern, because my deer would come back every year right on the clock. I mean, they do right now. I've still got farms there for mom and dad to hunt, and they're there every year. I mean, the same ones within just a few days most of the time. My farm stays about the same. I've got alfalfa, things like that set out for them, planted, but there's beans and corn around me. Maybe that could change a little bit, their patterns. If they have a field they're naturally wanting to be in more, and it's beans this year, maybe they go to that field a little bit more. But really, I think he'll be there and get on him early, just like you said, because when they drop that velvet, they're gone. They're going. Yep. They're going to their different.
I think his biggest challenge is going to be finding him. Because I think a lot of times during the summer, their patterns are when you say tight, I think that a lot of times they're not going more than
a
few hundred yards.
Yeah,
like from
you
bedding
could be
to where they're
one trail off and not get a picture of him or something too.
Right. So if you can find him, you're probably going to be able to you should be able to get on it. But the trick is, at the same time, it might be hard to find him because he's not going anywhere. So if he's not in a place where you can glass or get cameras, or he's in corn or whatever, it could make it very difficult to find him.
Especially have a water source close. If they don't have a water source, they'll travel a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, they're standing right there in it.
Yep.
But keep in mind, you're always going to get an exception to the rule, and Nomad was an exception to the rule.
Yeah.
I mean, here it was summertime, and I saw this deer within a 2-mile radius in the same day. Caught him on a trail camera, and I saw him in the morning, and then I saw him in the evening, and he was 2 miles apart from. I mean, just crazy.
He was a gooftard.
Yeah, that's why we called him Nomad,
That
because
was
he was
during season though, wasn't it?
No, that was in
That was
August. He was still in velvet.
What, the truck?
Yeah, that was like the
there's a
last
reason
week
that
of
deer-
August. And I'm like, what is this deer doing? Because, I mean, and then when I got the trail camera photo, because I wasn't a cell cam, so I had to go get it. And I'm like, that's the same day that I filmed him. And I went and looked, and sure enough, it was the same date. And I had seen him in 2 different spots. Now I had confirmed he was in a 3rd different spot. And I was like, he had to have made one humongous circle all in one day in August.
There's a reason the deer is deader than a doornail right now.
Yeah,
and not by us.
Yeah,
So-
neighbor killed him. I mean, but he was just not very smart. All right, well, that was cool. That was a good question. Let me get to the next one, because the next one kind of gets us to the topic that I think Shane is even more of an expert on when we get to food plots. So this gentleman writes, and I think there's 2 different people. Oh,
is it mine?
yeah.
I'd written the first main question and then explained a little bit more under.
Okay, I apologize if I think Travis asked this question, but I'm not positive. So if you didn't, Travis, sorry. All right, small food plots with big land around them, what to plant? I only have 15 acres, 2 acres tillable. What would you plant? Pros and cons. Also, I'm surrounded by over 1,000 acres of Board of Education property on all sides, and there's big deer around, but they just come and go completely random on my parcel. What do I plant to change that? That's what he's asking. What would you put in there? And then I got another one that goes along with that. So does someone else want to go first? I don't mind going first, but
What state's he in?
didn't say.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple big things that we need to know to answer a little better. Number 1 is what kind of food is around there already, I would think. Number 2 is where you at, location-wise. And number 3 would be what time of year are you hunting? Because I would tell you based on what time of year I'm hunting, bow hunting, or depending on if your season's later for gun hunting or something, like for your late muzzleloader season can be a wonderful time of year to be able to kind of hone in on certain bucks. And if you have the right setup, especially if you have the right food. But if I'm bow hunting them, it might be a little different because I'm going to be earlier in the season and I'm going to be trying to get them there earlier. In that situation there, it seems to me on what we see, or something that I would do, especially if there's not much there, was one of my favorites is alfalfa. They
Absolutely.
freaking love it,
Yep.
especially early. And because what's the whole rule of thumb there? The green leaves or whatever for earlier season, and then you want there's some saying I would have to think about what it is.
I don't know what the saying is, but I know like the last week of October, green's excellent. I mean,
Yeah.
alfalfa,
If you can keep it.
yeah, and alfalfa's green for a long time, and they'll eat it to the dirt. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head with alfalfa. It's the number 1 food source. If I had to pick one, I didn't realize how powerful it was. I mean, used it in Kentucky, but here we just put in 20, 30 acres of alfalfa, and those deer my farm went from no bucks on it hardly in the summertime, all does and some young bucks, to I'm out driving around now, and I'm like, where's all the bucks at? And
They're in their alfalfa.
they're in my alfalfa. I drove back there the other night. There was like 10 or 15 bucks that I recognized from previous years in that alfalfa, and I'm like, I'm doing all this work, and they're right here. and get
Good.
more cameras out.
A good example of that is at your place, at your house. If you pay attention to it, which now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm going to try to pay attention to it this year. We have two different fields that are alfalfa on one side, and on the other side is clover, and I mean a lot of different types of clover and everything, and it's all perfectly green and everything too. But if you go walking out and look at where all the deer are right now, I mean, today is July 31st. I would like to see at what point in time, and if it does, it changes maybe during the season. But alfalfa, all of them are in it. Anything in the clover, there's like one or two or something, and they're probably walking towards the alfalfa. So like the alfalfa that's two comparisons that are early season, known for an early season, and the alfalfa blows the clover out of the water.
And
completely.
You think that is good through late October?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have my deer in the fields January and December in those alfalfa fields right now eating it. I mean, they'll eat it to the dirt. You'll think it's gone, and spring back out next year. My question:
the weather affects it, like that? How, like, if you have a really, really nasty cold snap in October, do you think they're still going to go to alfalfa or beans or corn?
Cold snaps, my experience has been grain, beans and corn.
Yeah, they're looking for the protein and carbohydrates to get warm.
Yep.
Stay warm. So they got to switch at some point. But, I mean, we hunt a farm that's south of my house. And that farm, when they first put the alfalfa in there, we thought they destroyed it. It was, it's not much timber. It's almost all fields that were there, and it was all corn and beans. And we had lots of deer and everything. And then they said they were switching it to alfalfa. And I was like, oh, geez. Holy cow. I mean, it lit up. The deer just poured into there, I mean, it sucked deer because we were hunting two different farms, and it sucked deer off the one farm over to that one. And so, and then we've been back. We've hunted that late season as well. And the deer, I mean, it's one of the few places you go and see where they've digging holes, and they'll have big 4-foot spots dug out where they're getting to that alfalfa to eat it, But now some of that depends on, too, that farmer, different years, is his last cutting has been earlier or later. And when it seems like when he does it earlier and then we get some warm temperatures in October or late September and it grows back to where it's like a foot tall, that's when it's been fantastic late in the winter, because there's still a lot of green underneath the snow.
That was my next comment was it gets so big they kind of leave it alone when it right for it, because typically you cut your alfalfa every 30 days. So the week before you cut it, they kind of leave it alone. They're out browsing on something else, and then as soon as they cut it and it greens up, as soon as it rains on it, it greens up, boom, they're on it again. So you have probably 3 weeks out of the month. They just, that's their number one source. It's kind of like acorns, and they're going to be on it.
Yep.
So what would be I guess earlier season? Because I feel like unless you have really, really good, I guess alfalfa is one of the best ones I can think of that I've consistently seen deer going, like something that I would say I would like to go hunt over this food plot first 3 weeks October or something, because they're coming to this. I've always also liked hunting over clover and stuff, but over the years of seeing the difference and which ones work better, like what would be a different kind of field you could plant that is pertained for early season, that is much more attractive to them early season.
Turnips and dakin rashes.
Early.
Yeah,
Really?
that's why I hunt over most of that edge of the alfalfa. But
because I've always had in my head brassicas is like I'm planting them for late.
No.
Are they eating the turnips that early, or are they eating the leaves?
The leaves.
The leaves.
Yep. It's like a grocery store to them. It's and I planted too early last year. I was trying something new. I planted early July. This time of year, I've got pictures of one of these shoes sticking up in it. It was taller than my shoe, and it was like July 24th. So they were tall, but when season got here, they didn't really want to fool with them. They ate them some. They'd walk through them pretty quick. But when I'd plant generally August 1st through about August 15th, they're prime for them. And you can hit them with a little bit of nitrogen before a rain, and that sweetens them up. They'll tear them up. I mean, it doesn't get much better.
So what you're saying is my beans should be pristine with those brassicas in there because the nitrogen.
Yes.
So all season, the number one we're going to say then to get the most amount of time to hunt on it, are we saying alfalfa?
Yep.
I think so.
If you have access to equipment or a farmer to take care of. If not, it'll go away on you because you plant it, it comes up, weeds they'll take over. You have to cut that stuff to keep it going. If he doesn't have access, that clover's the second easiest because you can mow it with anything, a mower, whatever.
Yeah, just a riding mower.
Yeah. Then I would go
Goats.
goats, whatever you need.
I think I will say on the clover discussion, I think that this is totally a theory, but I'm wondering because I'm thinking about some of the times we've planted literally straight clover, no mixes or anything, and the amount of deer we've seen in them. I'd be curious to know, like, if you think that just clover is better than, because I feel like that's a better response than when you have a mixture of every kind of clover you can think of and the chicory and everything else that's mixed in it. I think that clover alone is better.
Ladina clover's good. Yep. It's a white top. It works really good. And it depends on what kind of ground he has. If he has dry ground, alfalfa's going to do better. If it's a loomy ground, like wet ground, clover's going to work a lot better. Clover doesn't like dry ground, and alfalfa don't like wet ground. So that's another helping.
So doing a pH test on your ground is going to be something you're definitely going to want to do before you plant it. Yep. And then again, all we're telling you is based on what we've seen, what we're doing, but not understanding what you have agriculture-wise around there could change possibly what you're thinking. Because you could, if it was all cornfields all around or something like that, you could turn around and put beans in there and have the only bean field in the place and leave them standing, and you got early and late season.
Right, beans are all year too.
Yep,
that's my second go-to.
Yep.
I will say though that with his situation, it said 2 acres, and he's surrounded by 1,000. That is Board of Education, which I would imagine is not huntable.
I don't
know.
Am
I fair in assuming that a Board of Education
The only
property?
place I've ever seen ground like that is Nebraska.
No, Montana had school trust land, and that was huntable. It was like public land.
Huh.
So
I don't know what his situation would be there.
Do we know his state or not?
We don't.
No.
Okay.
But I would think 2 acres of alfalfa in a place that doesn't have it. If it's Board of Education and they don't plant it or something, I would think that would be.
Oh yeah, because out west in Montana, alfalfa fields, deer, elk, killed them. What was the other one? Barley.
Barley's that's the craziest thing I've ever seen, because I've seen some huge alfalfa fields in Montana, and I watched 250 elk come out of the mountains, and I thought they were headed to this 200-acre alfalfa field, and they all went across the alfalfa, and they piled into like a 10-acre that was a little different color, and I didn't know what it was. And I was like, what the heck is going on? I mean, like they crammed in, like they couldn't even hardly fit.
250 elk in 10 acres?
In 10 acres. They were all just bunched up in there. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I talked to the landowner, and he's like, I planted barley in there, and them damn elk have just about annihilated it. I'm not going to get anything off of it. I mean, they were just pummeling it. And I don't know what it was about barley, but that was during elk season. It was in September.
Isn't that an ingredient to alcohol?
Yeah, for beer.
Maybe they're all getting drunk.
Maybe.
I don't think that's how that one works.
If so, I'm planting that anywhere we go. Elk.
Warren be down there eating a piece of barley.
No, I'm looking for
trying to get the elk drunk. We heard one of those this year. Last year.
The next one was from a Ron White, and I think I don't think it's
tater salad.
Yeah. He could give you a few tips on golf. He's big into golf, really. But he's a big John Daly fan. He knows him pretty well, it sounds like. So I don't think this is the same Ron White, but
we're going to assume it is.
All right. His question was tactics for building small properties, 40 acres or less. So it's pretty general.
This is a perfect podcast for Shane. I don't even need to be here.
Well, but I mean, so my whole point is on that is I like small properties. And we've kind of strategically, now maybe a little bigger than that, like 60 to 80 acres is.
Did they have anything that they were specifically trying to do?
No, he didn't say like timber it
or deer.
No, he didn't.
This has been a very multiple ask question too, like on small chunks, how could you do something to make it better and pertaining to food plots and stuff. Yeah.
Well, here's the first thing that I would tell someone. If you're one of those guys and you want to buy a piece of property and you don't have a ton of money and a 10-acre piece of ground comes available, or 20 or 40, and you're thinking, man, this is not going to be enough to do anything on, don't overlook it. If it's the right chunk of ground, it can be the most fabulous place you've ever seen in your life to hunt. We hunted a place here ourselves that was 10 acres. We killed a couple of really good deer off of that property. We didn't have any food plots on it because we just had permission to hunt it, but we had a transition area, them going from feeding back to the bedding area that they wanted to go to, and this property sat right along the river, and it was perfect. And it was like, if you could have bought it, I mean, You would have been killing the same thing that someone that might own 250 acres off of this little 10-acre piece. I've seen that. Another one in Montana was where Kirk Clark used to hunt. And I don't know if he still hunts there, but there was a huge, we're talking 25,000 acres, and he had an 80-acre sliver that was a rectangle that went into the middle of this thing.
Talk about making you feel like a little fish.
And he could kill every big buck on that place every year. Is all you had to do was be there. You had to be there. That was it. And so I would encourage guys, don't overlook the little stuff. But what would you do, Shane? I guess I'll ask you, if you had a 40-acre piece and what are some of the things you would look for going in, or some of the things hey, I might have to do this to make it better?
Access, wind direction, things like that be number one.
Roads.
Because you're going to blow it out. You got 40 acres hunt. You don't want to be blown out.
Yep.
You got to have good access. Go in there and make cover, make you a sanctuary, make some cover in there, keep them tight.
What would that look like? Like, what does that mean?
Hinge cutting,
planting maybe native grass if you got an area like that. Something. I think hinge cutting is probably one of the most solid, but you can get too much of that. And
so
you
believe in that? Because I really don't know hardly anything about hinge cutting because I'm way too lazy to go do all that shit. So, but I've heard, and that's basically you're cutting down trees, right?
Not all the way.
Not all the way.
The key is
Hard
leave
leave
it
them
alive.
out.
Yeah.
Keep the tree alive where it
like
shoots
4
up.
feet up or something like that. And just trying to, are you seeing that there's more deer that then go in bed there than anywhere else before?
You ever notice a tree fall over in the woods and there's always beds under it? So that's basically what you're doing, and you're keeping it alive.
All around it and stuff too.
That's basically what you're doing is hinge cutting, and plus you're giving them, when you keep it alive, there's little shoots come off, and they love that because that's, Grant Woods was talking about it in a podcast one day about how logging, you have all the nutrients. You cut a tree, then if they have shoots come off, all the nutrients go to those shoots instead of that whole tree. So, I mean, they're eating that up. And it's the same thing with when you hinge cut. You don't kill the tree. You try to leave, a third of it where it just breaks over and it keeps feeding that for a while. And it'll get new, like, little shoots, and that'll be good for them. But the main thing is the bedding. That's what you're trying to do. If you got some access to water or put a little water hole in or something like that, that's good. But food, but to me, the number one thing is you have to have good access to that farm because, if you got 1,000 acres, if you blow an area out, just move around. But if you got that 40 acres, you've got to be able to utilize that 40 acres,
right? So, and one of the things that, and you guys have seen me do this, what Shane's talking about is nutrition coming into because it'll even do that in the leaves of the trees. Oh. If you're out there and you're cutting limbs, clearing, shooting lanes, and then I'll take those limbs when I've done that, and I'll throw them in front of my trail camera. And every deer in the country for the first day or two will come and eat those leaves because there's more nutrition, a different sweetness or something that the deer are super attracted to, and they will show up for those leaves and eat them. And the other one that they do is grandfather moss? Is that the right
moss of it?
Yeah, out in Montana. You pull that moss off a tree and lay it on the ground, like when it was up high, and you get it down near the ground, it was over. They're all coming. But it's something to do with how the food moves through the live tree or the live shrub. And so that can be a big deal. But I agree, the access part and the wind, and so that means that I'm looking for, the other thing that I would want to do is I would check neighbors. Absolutely. I want to know what my neighbors can make or break your farm.
I don't care if it's 40 acres or 1,000. Go talk to every neighbor around there and see what they're doing.
Yeah, you want to know what's going on, especially when it is 40 acres, because your neighbors are going to kind of dictate what ends up happening on your farm.
They're going to lie to you, but that's okay.
Right.
At least you kind of know where they're at.
Exactly.
Back to the don't hinge cut too much. I have a buddy, they went in hinge cut 30, 40 acres, hammered it, and it multi-floor rows come up, and deer wouldn't use it, so they had to start burning their woods every year and got it back to
where they needed it.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I was just trying to make sure that people understood what hinge cutting was because I really don't, obviously. Okay. So cover, and is hinge cutting the only way that you could do that?
No.
No, like you mentioned, planting native grasses or switchgrass or things like that is another way to do it.
Yeah.
The other thing they're doing there, too, is trying to visually, when they walk into a chunk of land, it's not like an open chunk of timber. Like when they have things that are falling down in certain spots, they're going to feel more secure because they have the cover like they're getting for the bedding and stuff. So at a further distance as well, you're getting, when they get into it, it's good for them because they have the bedding and everything. When they are not, they don't know maybe, or they haven't been through the area, they can see physically right there that they're protected. They have different places they can get into. And then I think the other big part about it is it helps variety, right, of different things that are growing. In different variety is the guys that are talking about that stuff, they talk about variety of plants and trees is like number one on everything I've found that when I watch those videos and read about it and stuff, that's what they're looking for. I have nothing to attest to that, and I don't. I think that we've had both. We've had places where it's the same freaking tree throughout the entire thing, but we still are hammering deer. But then we have other places where it's like 77 different species of trees and crappy thorns and everything else that you do great in that too. So I think it kind of depends. But
TSI helps a lot with that. You go in ring cut, and then it starts dying. The tree
that's
dies.
who I was watching the TSI stuff, like specific to that style.
Yes,
that's what it was.
And you get rid of your bad trees and put some more nutrients to your good trees. The bad tree starts dying, they fall from the top down. They don't fall over, and they just make a brush pile at the bottom, and that's really good cover for deer and all kinds of wildlife. But that's I would do that too. I'd go and find someone to do some TSI and know what they're talking about, and go in. And if you're going to do 40 acres, you could really hone in and maximize that.
I think we should look at he's got 40 acres, and what we would, if I were to have just bought a 40-acre piece, the things that I'm looking for, going to question, going to try to figure out those types of areas or types of things and what our next steps are. And I think that when it comes to if I buy 40 acres and I'm thinking, could I put some food on here? Or I've got really good bedding, let's say, but I don't have food sources. Okay, well then there's something I'm lacking.
Yeah, you might want to clear a 1 or 2 acre spot. You don't have to do 10 acres. I mean, you don't have to do 4 acres. You don't have to do 10%.
No,
you can go something smaller that puts the deer in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about food plots specifically here in a second. That's the next question. But so yes, you could go in and you could add food to it. Like Shane said, you can add water without putting a pond. A pond would be great if you can do that. But there's companies now making water troughs and things like that. I mean,
Grizzly.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Our grizzly trough is actually freaking
working really well.
All kinds of I don't know why that one over. We've had other ones that are just
didn't work near as well. I think it's more
stuff.
water.
I think that's what it might be.
It's bigger. I think it holds like 50 gallons.
380 quarts.
Wow.
So divide that by 4.
Make that hard.
Well, that's what they have it listed.
But it can be a pond size this room right here.
Yep.
You just unline it. Something.
95 gallons. Go on. It's a lot of water.
No, but that's what he's saying. A pond can be something. It doesn't have to be a half an acre pond or an acre pond or something like that. It could be something that is big enough to hold several hundred gallons of water, and that's enough to hold deer.
Especially if you have a spot where it's getting more like rain. When you get rain, you'd be surprised how much that thing fills up. I mean, even if it just rains pretty good, it'll fill itself up pretty quick.
Yep.
So that you got food, you could possibly add food. You could possibly add bedding or bedding. I think would be the hardest one if you're missing bedding. You have a lot of food, but you don't have a lot of areas for them to live. Kind of. The only thing I can think of that you'd be able to fix that issue and you'd be attempting would be like your native grasses and trying to get tall stands of natural grasses and things like that they will go bed in and can live in. But unless you're willing to go freaking plant a tree farm and wait 20 years, that would be the hardest one, in my opinion, to add to a farm if it's lacking.
If you had really good bedding, would you go and clear out any of that to put in food?
Depends on how much I had. If the whole freaking thing is bedding, absolutely I'm going to clear some of it out. Maybe if like right even in the center or like right on the edge of something, so that I can give them every more reason to stay there even longer. Because they're going to bed there. They're going to screw around during the rut around their bedding, trying to find does. And then if I can also give them food and water, then unless they start running out of does, they got no reason to, I should have opportunities for them to by more often than not. But if I didn't have much, I would rely probably on the natural lay of the land.
If it's really good bedding and their neighbors all have food, I'm not touching it.
Oh, yeah, in that situation,
I'll kill them suckers. And
that's where you've killed, the last $2 or $3 right in their bedroom, pretty much. You waited till it's right time.
Magnum was 100% in a bedroom.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
there was
pretty
not a
much.
freaking
All
ounce
of
of food where he was at.
I
He
think
was coming from it, I think.
BG bedded right where you shot him at. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
oh, yeah, I
the
mean,
place that he would hang out right there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of them have been in their bed. I don't even really hunt fields anymore. Just because it's so, I was already thinking of stealing your kayaks again because I'm thinking of one of the deer we need to try to kill this year. And the only problem with like early October, I think that you want to hunt him on the edges there on Spartan Hill. And the problem with that is getting out of there. You are going to bust deer no matter what. And going in you'll be okay, but getting out you're going to bust deer no matter what, unless you come from the river.
Yep.
And I already lost one boat that way. So I'm thinking a kayak
Are you
now.
talking about Gypsy?
No, RJ.
Oh, yeah.
Gypsy's cute. RJ's big.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you could come right up that bank there if you came from the river, and you could drop right off that bank. Never mess with those deer.
You can talk crap on Gypsy, but I'd be willing to bet he beat the crap out of RJ even though he's smaller.
My dad
don't
can
know.
beat up your dad.
I'm just going out that freaking deer breaks his main beam every year, and he's got mass. Like, he must be fighting.
Those rivers are death to them. I hunted that property. It's public now for years. And I'd take that little John boat up there. I'd leave 2 hours in the morning early, come right, tied up to a tree, pop her out of that bank, wouldn't have to stand 5 yards off the bank. Never had deer wind you where you've been, scent trail you or whatever. And then get right back down, get boat, gone. And and it adds to it. It's a cool experience, too. Hunt back there all day and come out in the big moon shining down on the river and stuff like that, and coons running across trees. And
especially if you got a big deer in the front of it, too.
helps.
Yeah.
Mom should have killed a big deer. He was that 7 down where you shot BG, and we took the boat. But it was cold, like -10, and we got it. It wasn't frozen because the temperature just dropped, so all the steam's coming off the. It was like the coolest morning ever to go across there. Other than she was
had
petrified.
one, though, where he's got this 165-inch deer on the front of it, and it's like the coolest, most whitetail hunter dream thing ever. And I was like, dude, why haven't you sent this to me? He's like, oh, what do you mean? It's just a video. I'm like, that'll go crazy on socials. And so then I posted it, just like his snort wheeze and his decoy buck and everything else.
Heck yeah.
Shane was our social source for a while.
So the next question kind of, and I hope we answered to the best. I mean, it's kind of a not knowing the 40-acre one.
To summarize it, you need to find. I mean, without knowing the information, you need to kind of try to identify what you're lacking. In my opinion, I mean,
absolutely, you
anything
want
you're
some
going to,
diversity.
you wanna-
If you
yeah.
can, if you want a little bit of food, a little bit of cover, a little bit of, but you definitely. But with what Shane's saying, I would tell you I would pass on a property if I did not think that I could access stands.
Yeah.
If it was just flat, wind was going to be wrong every single time I tried to go hunt there. All I'm going to be doing is helping the neighbors.
Yes.
Every time I go in, I'm going to push deer out. And so that's not something that I want to do. And we've experienced stuff like that where we've just had to flat pull a stand because we found out we couldn't get there.
Yeah.
You just can't get there. It doesn't work like this. So the next question, though, is from Austin P. And he just basically says, where's the best place to put a food plot? And if it is near a lot of human traffic, is that a bad idea?
Yes.
Well, I say yes.
My issue is, what is the human traffic? Like, is it people walking on a trail, or is it a road? Is it something illegal,
or
or
it's
is
next
it
to the bike trail? Then that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But I know we have not too far from us a neighbor put in, I guess you would call it a food plot. It's probably 5 acres. Part of it is corn, but it butts up to a public road, and I think he's going to get some deer killed because you're just making them vulnerable there. They come out to feed, and then they're there, and someone can't.
Get the one down in the bottom by the ridge.
Yeah, and they just can't help themselves, and they take a shot at them. And the other thing would be the frustrating part is if you did have the deer you were looking for show up in the food plot, he's got a box shooting house there, and here everything's coming together. You're about to get a shot, and a truck comes down the road and stops and looks, and the deer runs off. That would be super frustrating. So I would tell you that I would try to avoid my food plots being even the ones that we have some that border roads, and we don't do a lot of like congregating those deer to hunt them there. We may put in something food wise for them to eat, but we're not trying to keep those deer there. or hunt them there because it's just too frustrating. So that would be my comment on that. As far as where to put a food plot in general,
Dead center
or wherever the best location that on your property is that you can access to and from. I mean, I know you do some of the same things that I've done. You do it better than I have done. Strategically putting things in the way so you can enter a blind and things like that, such as hay bales or planting Egyptian wheat or some kind of a cover screen or whatever to be able to get in there. There's all kinds of things that you can do to help you with that, but having access, people think it's crazy that you go mow a trail or something like that so you can walk down there without making a lot of noise, or rake a trail, get the leaves off of it. It can be all the difference in the world.
Plant Egyptian wheat 12, 15 feet wide, mow us right down the center of it. It doesn't get any better.
They got a natural trail.
Well, so do you.
Right. You can get right to your blind.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Have you had them use things like, because this is the first year that I've planted the amount of Egyptian wheat that we have. And you ever planted them where you're literally planting like a chunk on the right and a chunk on the left in hopes that they use it as a trail? Because I thought of that, and I was like, I feel like you're just it's too compressed for them, like it's too tight quarters for them, that they'd probably want to walk the outside edge of it or something instead of.
I would think so.
Right down the middle.
See what it did in my farm though, because I had a neighbor who was encroaching in, putting blinds all around the property line. I put that Egyptian wheat around the whole, probably a mile and a half around through there, and it got up 12, 14 feet tall. It made my daytime activity increase so much, mature deer, so they felt more comfortable in those fields with that block around them, basically. I didn't do it the next year just to see, and that guy sold. Sure enough, they didn't come out as early. I put it back up now, and they're there early again. Yeah, that's a little tactic I accidentally ran up on.
Well, because there's guys out there preaching it now. There's multiples of them. I've seen 2 or 3 different not podcasts, but seminars that guys, and they're talking about breaking their food plots up into quarters.
Yeah.
To get the deer to spend more time in there, because then the deer can't look across. Say you got a 1 acre food plot and you cut it into 4 sections. Well, now when a deer walks out in let's just say the southeast corner, he can't see the northwest corner because there's stuff in the way. So he has to go into the food plot, work his way over to get in there to see in those different quadrants. So he's keeping them in the food plot longer. It's somewhat similar to what we're doing with our rub trees, where you get them to come to a food plot a lot of times. And if you're a bow hunter, there's a whole lot of times you don't get to kill the deer you're after because you see him, but he won't come right where you want him to. He's following a doe around, or they're feeding around. But finding a way, doing something like quadranting your food plots could definitely do something like that. But I can tell you rub trees work just as well.
Yep.
Food plots have. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go on, Kentucky. Got it.
Well, they have a lot of power. The stand we hunted last year when I killed Wicked 2, you filmed it. That field was planted there. I cleared that out, not just to hunt, but so my fields deer come out into, they were coming out an hour before dark, then they were going east where a farmer let just anyone hunt pretty much. Well, they're going out there and getting whacked, 2-year-old, 3-year-olds, it didn't matter. So I tried to decide how to keep them on me longer. So I put all my food in the center, went back in the woods, started making food plots in the woods. So now they come to those food plots in the woods, hang around for 20, 30 minutes, then come out to my fields. It's dark before they go east now. I don't know if there's deer in those fields in most days.
That's awesome. Well, I can tell you, I was sitting in that tree, and it was 45 minutes to an hour before dark when the first bucks started showing up in the food plot. It wasn't like they were right at dark 30, we only have a few minutes.
Right.
But, and the other one that you should pass on that I think would talking about what you could do to your property is what you did there when you cleared that is you left everything that you cleared along the edges of your food plot, and then the first tree that goes up on the other side of that's where we walked over and climbed up in there. So Shane can shoot into the food plot, but deer can't walk out of the food plot underneath you.
Yep.
Because there's a buffer there of all the deadfall.
Yep. It's
slick, man. It was and that also gives you a buffer that when you came down out of the stand, I think they would see you getting out. If you shot a deer, so we didn't have to worry about that. But typically, if they were in the field, but you're counting on them.
They're gone.
Hitting your food plot and then moves on and goes on into your field.
Yep.
And yeah, it was slick. I mean, because that evening when you shot, you did shoot pretty late, but we saw 25, 30 deer, I would guess, something like that came out in there.
Yeah.
Probably $10.
Three good
Three
older
bucks.
deer,
Yeah, older deer, but some younger bucks and stuff like that. It was really good. But no, that was, to me, that's a like spot on setup the way you had it, and you had that stand position for the wind and everything else, so that you come in with the wind into kind of a quartering wind is what we had, and it worked perfect. Now, I don't think no deer knew we were there the whole time that we were there.
I can't remember. As long as you hunt a southeast, northeast, anything east, that's what that field's set up for. I don't think I've ever had deer bust me there. They never come up behind you because you put those blocks, all the tops and stuff in there, and you just kind of, when you make those fields, think where you want the deer to come into the field and where you're going to enter and exit, and that's the best way to build them.
Yep. So, but we should talk a little bit about the wind in relation to that, and that is, I don't know about you, but basically I'm banking on, when we're talking about buying a farm for the right wind, I'm basically looking at west winds.
Yep. That's
typically what we're going to get. Now, you can't have it that way all the time, but typically if I'm looking at a farm, I'm going, okay, if I want an easterly approach or a north or a south approach to get to where I'm going, anticipating a west wind coming is what I'm looking at. And then occasionally, though, you definitely want to, once you start hunting and once you start establishing stand locations, you want to put some stands in places that are not west winds, so you're not stuck a day where you're like, I have no stand to go hunt. I can't go anywhere.
That's my go-to spot on the east, right there. Yep.
Fair enough.
I think
that's a lot.
I think that was all my questions.
You went in the air conditioning unit in here.
Was there one?
Oh my gosh.
Hold on, let me see if there was one more.
I will say this on the food plots.
No,
it's just the what would you do part. What?
I will say this on the food and the food plots. So you can plan all you want to, and you've talked to Foster, and you've talked to Foster. He keeps me on my toes. He's always questioning me, what would you do here? And it's good because it keeps me thinking, and I'll go out to his farm, we'll look at it, and he's an awesome guy. But it's funny because I was telling him the other day, he asked me what that big deer was on. I said, well, that was ragweed that just got mowed, and I fertilized it. So I was screwing with him, and I had him thinking all night. The next day I said, hey, I'm just kidding. But on a serious note, about 10 years ago on a farm in Kentucky, I plowed up some ground and didn't plant it. I just didn't like it the way it was going to turn out. It was wrong for the wind when I started checking the wind during morning and evenings, and ragweed come up probably 4 or 5 feet tall. And I'm like, well, that just sucks because it's always going to be ragweed now because it's hard to get rid of. I had beans and clover, whitetail clover, I love whitetail clover. But regardless, those deer at a certain time was walking through that beans and the clover, going over eating that ragweed for an hour at a time. I had 5 mature bucks in that ragweed. I don't have the footage now because it was 10 years ago, but I watched those deer eat that ragweed. So I think everything has its time and place.
Mm-hmm. No,
I've watched them eat freaking thistle, and they
Canadian
don't care.
thistle, and I'm like, and it's thorny and hurts.
They'll pull it out.
Yeah,
too,
and
like,
I've watched
have it in
them
their
suckers
mouth.
eat it, and I'm like, is he really? And then sure enough, they got purple flour hanging out of their mouth. I'm like, he's definitely eating Canadian thistle.
And don't worry if you don't get all the grass out of your beans and stuff like that. Yeah, it takes a little bit of nutrients, but deer love walking around those beans when there's got foxtail and stuff shoulder high. They feel comfortable in it.
Yep.
I've let it.
I did that on purpose.
Yeah. All right. So
I've noticed though that it weirdly in the one of the bigger fields that we did this year, they're all hanging out in the beans by where there's grass growing with it. Because I know that like when I've sprayed it, there's a crap pile of beans growing in it.
Right.
But when the grass starts growing, it looks like it's just all grass. But that section, it's in the top corner. Is where they always are. Every time. And there's beans the rest of the spot.
They feel like they're covered.
I guess.
I don't know.
all right, I have excellent what would you do? Because this one is going. So we started a new sort of like his wacky facts. We have a what would you do?
Okay.
And this is me and you had a conversation earlier today, and it made me think of it, and I was like, that's what we're going to do. What would you do on? Because what you brought up is something that I have been telling the camera guys. Because Nick kind of last couple of years was just kind of getting into deer hunting. He's like, should I go look for deer this evening? And I'm like, yeah, it might be good. And I started to notice that. Well, let me ask it in a question, and we'll see and that is, it's August 5th, 6th. Deer should be somewhat full grown. It's a great time to see them. You can drive but you got a 100-degree day. 100 degrees. It's been 100 degrees all day. It's been sunny. There's no storms, nothing like that. And you can either go look for deer this evening, or tomorrow there's a front coming through, and it's going to be cooled off. It's only going to be like 80 degrees tomorrow evening.
100 degrees.
And so would you go on the 100-degree day, or would you go on the 80-degree day? Would you expect to see something different on those 2 days?
You're saying that
100
front's
degrees.
coming
He's
through in
saying
the evening now?
No, like during the next day. So the next day is going to be cooler. So then the next evening is going to be cooler. The front's not going to affect you at all. It's not going to be as you're looking for deer.
100 degrees.
Warren says 100 degrees. What do you say, Easton?
I was thinking the next morning.
No, you got to pick an evening.
And then I'd do the night before. I'm talking about our neighbor.
When was the last time you ever got up to go look for deer? And
This is a what would you do? This doesn't mean I got to do it.
Noon is not
what would
considered
you
morning.
do?
Shut up, Shane.
So, Shane, what would you do? And just off of what you saw yesterday.
Yeah, it's a 100-degree day every time. I mean, some of my best days of summer scouting has been the hottest days. Yesterday evening stunk. I mean, I saw maybe at $10 all evening. I drove for 2 hours and just driving around in circles, thinking all this.
in his driveway. I don't know why I can't see a deer.
No kidding. I hit 3, but I can't find the rest.
No, but so anyhow, I hope we're giving you guys a tip. And here's what I'd like, because I know there's a bunch of guys out there doing that summer scout. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Riding around in the evening. Do me a favor and take a look. Tell me what you see. Just pay attention to the weather and see if you start noticing, because he and I were talking about those 100-degree days, like what Warren mentioned. For whatever reason, it seems like it'd be miserable. One of the largest deer I've ever seen was on like a 96-degree day at like 11 o'clock in the morning, standing in the bean field, 5D, when he was standing there with the drop tine and everything. And I told Mom we got to turn around and go back and look. And she's like, we got to get onto the office and everything. I'm like, wait. Then I look out there. Why he was there at that time, I don't have any clue.
He was probably bedded out there.
Well, he was standing when I saw him and standing there when I came back and filmed him.
Yeah, I think those Nimrods bed out in the beans a lot.
I think they do too. But
I think they're getting nutrients, building their body back up. They sit there and sweat all day. That's hard on your body, just like us. You got to get some kind of electrolytes back in your body. But the last 2 or 3 days when it's hot, midday, 1, 2 o'clock, 12, there's deer all out in bean fields everywhere you go. And I think they're having to get something replenished back
Possibly.
up. That's my only thing I can think of, because why in the world would you be out in it that hot?
Or they know we're not trying to kill them. So they're just like, we're good right now.
Well, just keep that in mind, that if you had 2 days to pick from, one's a hotter day, but that evening when it goes down to like 65 degrees in the summer, you feel like, oh, this feels like fall. It's going to be awesome. There're going to be deer everywhere.
Stay home and shoot your bow.
Yeah, stay home and practice. I mean, you're not going to see many deer. So there's the what would you do for today. Warren, you got a wacky fact for him now?
I do. And Shane just walked into it perfectly. Humans cannot walk in a straight line without a visual point. When blindfolded, we will gradually start walking in a circle.
To your right.
Blindfolded or blindfooled?
Blindfolded. I'd like to test this. Yeah. But Shane already,
what do you mean
had his eyes open and he started driving in circles.
What is eventually, like freaking 10 years down the road?
I don't know. I guess
circle,
you just don't have a way of,
typically you
keeping
go
your
right.
Navigating.
You go to the right.
I call BS.
You've tried this?
Hmm?
How do you know that?
Just kind of knew it. I've heard this before.
How do you know it's the right, though?
It's to the right.
You think it's right for right-handed or
I wonder
left-handed?
if a left-handed person goes
With
left.
left, right. I don't.
What? I'm going straight then.
He's ambidextrous.
Even though smoking has been banned on airplanes, ashtrays are mandatory on every plane. This is for safe disposal in case someone breaks the law. And I think that the government should now have to start saving money in case taxpayers don't pay taxes. That's what I think should happen.
That didn't make any sense, but
yeah, it does, you dipshit. Because if they would save money, then, and if taxpayers decided to break the law and not pay money, then we wouldn't have to be funding this crazy amount of shit we're paying for all the time. And I guarantee you the Republic of the Wacky Facts will agree with that, because we're all sick of all the taxes. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
So Warren got his.
Here's another one, because I know Easton takes a lot of these. Selfies now cause more deaths than shark attacks.
Whoa, how? From like freaking driving and snapping?
I guess. Probably.
Or walking in a
Snapchat.
circle, taking pictures of yourself and walk off of a building.
I know he was doing that. He sent me a video driving yesterday.
Wasn't a selfie though.
That was a pretty good one.
Pope Francis used to be a nightclub bouncer.
What?
There's no way that's real.
It's a wacky fact.
We're going with it. All right.
All right, we're out of here, guys. We sure appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for all the questions, and we will keep sending them, and we'll try to keep putting them together and come up with the best answers. And we'll get when someone from Kentucky asks a question, we reach out to the guys from Kentucky and bring them in just for you.
We flew Shane in here specifically
Yeah.
for this podcast, just for you, my man.
Awesome. Thanks,
pulled him out of
guys.
his circle. Of
He was stuck. My eyes are closed. I can't go anywhere.
We told him, just go left.
Yeah.
We sent him a text, go left now. And he got out of it. All right. This is Ray's Hunting signing off, guys. Thank you.